we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about the trade that it is officially kicking off the NBA's trade season. I would say I'm going to let our big, beautiful reporter, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, talk us through this one.
Trade come together.
Hey, Malika, there were discussions as late as last night that included bigger trades than just a two-way deal with LA. I was told that there were some three-way talks that would have involved Phoenix, but those larger trade discussions fell by the wayside. And then LA and Washington this morning zeroed in on the deal that they ultimately landed on. Rui Hachimura for Kendrick Nunn and those 3 second-round picks, a 2023 pick that LA has via Chicago, and the Lakers' own 2029 pick. And this was a player, Hachimura, who had wanted to be moved, did not reach a contract extension on his rookie extension this summer and into the fall with Washington, and wanted to be finishing games. That wasn't happening, and Kyle Kuzma certainly.
I'm just going to end this while Woj talks about like the context of everything that led to the deal, simply for no other fact than I don't want to get clapped up with a copyright strike in case this goes on YouTube. I don't really know how ESPN handles copyright. I don't really know how they deal with fair use and all that. But Hachimura said, quote, "I just want to be somewhere that wants me as a basketball player, and I want to be somewhere that likes my game. I just want to be somewhere that believes in me, and I can be myself. That's the goal." The Lakers acquired Hachimura with the intention of signing him to an extension. Hachimura is going to be a restricted free agent. The Lakers believe Hachimura gives them another sizable wing defender who has shown an ability to make corner threes and mid-range shots when teams run the Lakers off the three-point line. He shot 40.8% on catch-and-shoot threes over the last 2 seasons and is shooting 35% on catch-and-shoot threes over the course of his career. Quote, "Adding both size and depth to the wing position has been a goal, and the chance to accomplish that by acquiring a player with Rui's two-way skills and upside was an opportunity that doesn't present itself often." Hachimura hasn't really been all that great. I don't want to say that he hasn't been great. He has kind of underperformed as a lottery pick. He's averaging 13 points and 4 rebounds this season, largely because his role is so up in the air, especially playing behind Kyle Kuzma, playing behind Kristaps Porzingis. He's only averaging 24 minutes per game this year, which is not really that much, especially when you consider that he was taken with the 9th overall pick. Like, you should be seeing 30, 32 minutes per game. But I think that this speaks to something that the Wizards have struggled with over the last couple of years, and it's the fact that they just are the most mid basketball team of all time. They are the epitome of too good to tank, but not good enough to contend. This is them, and it's been this way for the last couple of years. You look at last season, they finished 35 and 47. You look at the year before that, they finished 34 and 38. You look at 2018-19, 32 and 50. They had a couple of decent years where they qualified for the playoffs, but that was back when John Wall was a member of the team, when he was playing at an all-star caliber level, when Bradley Beal, he's still a member of the team, but it was back when Bradley Beal and John Wall were one of the better duos in the Eastern Conference. So the first thing that I have to take exception with is that the fact that the Wizards have no plan, the front office has no plan, ownership has no plan. And I say this as someone who is weirdly plugged in to Wizards Twitter. The fans of the Washington Wizards absolutely fucking despise ownership. They despise the front office for reasons like this, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't have a philosophy. They don't have a plan. And despite the fact that they brought in a new coach, Wes Unseld Jr., who's doing a fine job as a young head coach, he is not really dealing with the most optimal situation. Because if you look at this Wizards roster, they are a little bit on the older side. Their leading guys in terms of minutes per game are Kyle Kuzma, who's 27, Bradley Beal, who's 29, KP, who's 27, Monte Morris, who is also 27. There's nothing wrong with having veterans on your roster. There's nothing wrong with having players in the middle of their careers on your roster. But when your best three players are Kyle Kuzma, Bradley Beal, and Kristaps Porzingis, you are not going to be doing anything noteworthy, let alone even like sniffing the second round of the postseason in an Eastern Conference that looks like this. Currently, they are outside of the play-in. They are 20-26. They are 6 games under 500, the 12th best team in the Eastern Conference. And it's simply because they've put all of their chips into these guys who are just not built to win a championship. I think that Bradley Beal is an exceptional player. I do think that he is best utilized as the number 2 on a championship team. He's a guy who could have went to Brooklyn to play alongside Kevin Durant. That's his optimal role. To go to the Lakers and play alongside LeBron James, be his number 2. To go to the Clippers and play alongside Kawhi Leonard. Like, that is the kind of role in which Bradley Beal would experience the most success. Kyle Kuzma, as incredible as his growth has been with the Wizards, is really not, a sustainable second option. Kristaps Porzingis is not a sustainable option as well. And what's even weirder is when you get into the whole Kyle Kuzma thing. So the Wizards trade for this dude. They traded for him in that 5-teamer. I have it on screen right here for anyone who's watching. As a part of that 5-teamer, where basically the Lakers did everything to acquire Russell Westbrook. So he was brought over in that trade. Now, the Wizards have no, or seemingly have no intentions of retaining Kyle Kuzma long term because they have not yet come to terms on an extension. And I don't foresee him returning to Washington. So you give up whatever pieces you'd parted with in this trade. I think it was they got rid of KCP, they got rid of Montrezl Harrell. No, the Wizards traded a handful of picks to the Nets. The Wizards then traded Russell Westbrook. The Wizards also traded Chandler Hutchison. So they traded a bunch of guys who didn't want to be. Russell Westbrook wanted to contend for a championship. Chandler Hutchison wasn't really a noteworthy player anyway, and they traded a bunch of picks for Kyle Kuzma. Now, you give up all of this cachet, and to not want to retain him is just super bizarro to me because he's a good talent. He's a decent talent. He's come a lot since when he was with the Lakers. And the Wizards are just like, nah, I don't really fuck with that. Very much like how they're not really fucking with Rui Hachimura for some reason anymore. Yeah, they just basically have built this team, this mid team, this is the definition of mid in regards to NBA teams, and they've built it around Bradley Beal, but they haven't really even tried to do anything noteworthy. They haven't tried to get Bradley Beal any additional stars to maybe turn this team into something. And it's doubly strange that they would elect to do a move like this because they also have a decent helping of young talent. Corey Kispert, Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura, and Daniel Gafford all have the makings of being a core that you can go forward with into the future. I think that Hachimura brings a lot of potential to the Lakers. He's averaging 19 and 8 per 36, I believe. Daniel Gafford, I love him. If the Wizards are looking to offload talented young players for second rounders, the Brooklyn Nets have a second rounder in 2025 that they could send to the Wizards for Daniel Gafford. I think that is definitely a trade that they would consider, especially if you throw in someone like Morris or if you throw in Edmund Sumner or someone, an end of the bench guy who isn't really contributing much to the team right now. Maybe that's something they do. But these 4 guys right here are a core that the Wizards could look to build with. Corey Kispert, very good 3-point shooter. Rui Hachimura, also a very good 3-point shooter. Someone who could maybe turn into some level of shot creator later on. Daniel Gafford is an elite presence in the paint. And Denny Avdia is, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know too much about Denny Avdia. But, who who's to say that he doesn't turn into a multifaceted wing? I mean, per 36, 11 points, 8 boards, 3.5 assists, 1 steal. He could turn into something. Do I think that this is the best core to have in the NBA? Certainly not. But the fact that Washington is prioritizing these older guys over these first, second, third year players is super bizarre to me. And they have Bradley Beal locked in long term, so he's not going anywhere. I think I honestly, he may say that he's fine with not winning a championship or that he wants to win a championship in Washington. I think that, you know, he recognizes that he can make as much money as possible now, when he's still in his prime, and then a little bit later, as maybe like a 32 or 33-year-old, go to a younger team, be that veteran presence in the locker room, be the floor spacer, be someone like Carmelo Anthony later in his career, an older guy who wanted to do right by the team that did right by him. It never panned out, and then he went on in this later part of his life and contributed uh, meaningful basketball to a contending team. But the point still remains, I don't understand why Washington would do this. Like, it makes sense from the Lakers' perspective, right? Kendrick Nunn, you have a lot of guards on that team already. You're thin at forward. You need playmaking options in the front court. Rui Hachimura does bring some of that to the Lakers. He can play off of LeBron James. He's not so ball dominant. He can play a lot of minutes when Anthony Davis isn't there. He can play minimal minutes when Anthony Davis is there. He's an upgrade over someone like Troy Brown Jr., for example, or if they want to play small and play Hachimura over Thomas Bryant or something, that's also an option. But Hachimura is a productive player whom I don't think greatly alters the Lakers' future projections, at least in the short term. But he may make them more palatable to watch. He may even help them become like a 500 team, or like a team that finishes 44-38, which would be very impressive. And I think if that were to happen, we would be seeing way more of LeBron in the MVP discourse. But I think the Lakers are also, looking long term with Hachimura. So yeah, I don't understand what the Wizards are doing, man. They are just I think they're content with being mid. The way this front office functions reminds me a lot of that SpongeBob episode when the Krusty Krab becomes a fine dining restaurant and SpongeBob basically has to relearn everything that he had learned in order to become like this, in order to become someone who would work in fine dining. And like all he remembers is fork on the left and beef Wellington. And then it cuts to all the little SpongeBobs in his brain, and they're like, SpongeBob, just tell him your name. Just tell him your name. And they're like, we forgot his name. This is what I imagine is going on in the Wizards front office. Is just total disarray, the complete abandonment of the common sense thing to do, which is prioritize young talent when you're a bad team. Like that is that's the only way to run a bad organization, is to prioritize young talent. And they are simply not doing that.